Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Brendan with Evoke Bike. We've got an awesome podcast for you today with Heather Laufer from Oklahoma City. Heather has won 5 world championship titles in inline skating, which is obviously incredible. She has several national championships. She's won a national championship in cycling. She left the sports scene to have a child and then came back. And we talk for the first 20 minutes to give a lot of context about just where she's been, and then we get into the more cycling specific and training questions. But really, you can tell from the gun, and I actually left the beginning in, she was a little nervous to talk about her process and how this comes up though as to how she attacked this to find more success in skating again, as well as find success on the bike. There's a lot of soft skills that I think we can all pull from this conversation. What's driving her? Is it the adrenaline of chasing wins, the understanding of the peaks and valleys of training, and that it's not a linear progression to success, which a lot of us think like, oh, my FTP is going to keep going up. And when it stalls, we think something's wrong. We don't see a metric for repeatability. We don't see that something else is improving. We don't see that there's cycles to this training. And that's really important to hear from someone who's won world championships. She talks a little bit about plyometrics and her training scenario, doing race sims, what she's eating on the bike, how nutrition has changed because the duration of the sports are different. Go race is her big motto, and really keep showing up not only for yourself but for the community around you. And people say you don't learn as much from wins, but she talks on the empowerment of wins and what that did for her. So I would listen to the whole thing. I wouldn't skip to minute 20. I think there's a lot of great context there that you can learn from, that I've definitely learned from, and I'll be re-listening to this one, especially when I need some motivation and when I need to be inspired to go do something, because we can always talk ourselves out of something. That's so easy. And sometimes it's really hard to talk ourselves into going to the big race, into trying to upgrade, into all these things that we're chasing while there's a million other things happening in life. But your sports life, go after it. Get hungry, set goals, accomplish them, surprise yourself. I just hope that I keep doing that. It's been a great journey, and I hope that your journey is just as fun and enjoyable. So Heather, thank you so much for doing this. This was awesome. See you guys.
Yeah, I'm super nervous.
Why do you not like doing these?
Oh man, it's crazy. Like I used to actually like run away from from skating. Probably because I talk like this when I'm in this environment. The journalists were when I skated, I would like find every reason to miss the interview, or like I'd have food in my mouth, or I'd be like, I gotta go do this, or I gotta adjust my skates, or they'd be like, but I'm like, no.
Like,
Yeah.
What do you think that is? Why is that?
I don't know. I think I just wanted to race, and I just wanted to do my thing, and that was it. Like I didn't want to have to explain, or like they break down the race for me, and I'd be like, I don't know, like it was wild. There was like skates everywhere. Like I don't know. I just
so
wanted to do my thing and nourish and go home, I guess.
Yeah. So I think reframing this one is more of like, it's actually funny because I used to say for the first 15 of these, like, hey, easiest question, who is so-and-so? And people would be like, who am I? And people are like, a lot of really successful athletes are pretty modest about what they've accomplished. And I've tried to preface this with, hey, this isn't really going to be an interview about me talking about how awesome you are. Most people already realize that. We want to, me and you, talk about your process to getting to being awesome at where you're at, so that other people can pick up those pointers and do it. So really, you're just taking a little bit of time to like share your experience, and you're really going to help a ton of people. Like it is crazy. I'm not going to stop these, because literally the number of messages that will come in from like, hey, I watched this one random one from this person. This has helped me so much. And then I forward it to the person, be like, yo, dude, it's going to be a huge help.
To interrupt, but like, thank you for thinking I'm awesome. Like, that's like, this is my feel good, like, what's today? Feel good Friday.
Feel good Friday. Here we go.
I'm like, I'm already set for the day. So whatever happens after this is fine.
How could you be a world champion of anything if it was basket weaving and not feel incredible about yourself?
Well, I mean, because life's pretty hard. Like,
Exactly. So to be a world champion is pretty insane. Like, if I could win a world championship in Grand Fondos for left-handed 39-year-olds, I would do that and I would be happy.
You'd be like, to be honest, on your t-shirt.
Yeah.
That was me.
Yeah.
I actually, I haven't reflected on those accomplishments for a very, very long time. And shamefully, I was digging in a box in the garage, and I was like, I didn't even know how many titles that when I went back to skating. Nobody knew some people knew who I was, but all the girls I was competing against, they had no idea. And like, there was something I was signing, and I was like, I can actually put world champion on this. And so I put world champion. And then I was just like, I don't, everybody puts their years or whatever, their event. And I was like, wow, I don't even know. So I just left it at world champion. And one of the girls was like, like, she looked me up afterwards and she was like, do you know how many titles you have? And I was like, no. But, yeah. So the shameful part is like the jerseys are in a box and the medals are in a separate box. And I found the jerseys and I was like, oh, wow, like, here's my jerseys. And I was like, I have more than one. I was like, so I'm like,
so this is huge. Okay, so this is huge. This is like making my eyes water. You will have forgotten more than a lot of people will have ever learned, and that in itself is like is massive. The depth of your knowledge, and that's the thing that, I mean, I think that's one thing that I have really tried to, as I got more into coaching, was you talk to your friends, right, and your teammates so often, and then you talk to a new athlete and you forget how much they don't know. And shout out to Ryan. This guy Ryan was going to a crit, and it did not dawn on me to be like, hey dude, FYI, when the gun goes off, like, it is full blast.
Go.
Just thought crit, like, I was thinking way beyond that. And it was like a really good lesson that I had to be like, okay, put yourself in Cat 5 brain when you were in basketball shorts and you rolled to a bike race and you were super freaking nervous. Totally different nerves than it is now. Still get nervous, still anxious, like whatever, but just very different. Thinking about way different things. So I think,
that's crazy. Well, but even I have a picture of at that time, she was like one of my greatest sprint rivals. And we used the gun to start the race, like an actual gun. So
slightly scary.
Yeah.
Is that only in Oklahoma or is that everywhere?
Yeah. So this is like, you can see the smoke coming out of the gun, and like the echelon of racers are like just hitting it, right? Like the race has started, and my friend Gypsy, she's got her hands on her hips looking the other way, which was great for me because I was like, when I saw that, I was like, well, that's why I won that one. Like, she wasn't even ready. Like, so yeah, you got to be ready.
Got to be ready. Oh,
man.
Be ready. This is going to be awesome as expected. So, okay. So
I'm just so stoked you think so. I'm giddy.
I mean, it's, I think was our first interaction going, it wasn't our first interaction going to Colorado, but just like, I don't know, even when we like went on that trip, it was a short weekend, but it was kind of trying to see like just kind of how you talked about stuff. I just honestly though, if somebody was like, hey, I won a national championship in fishing, I'm going to try this biking thing, I'd be like, okay, hey, you should probably come on this podcast because you know some stuff about. You downplay. Okay, this is where I'm actually going to definitely be showing this first part because it's super valuable, but we're going to start officially.
We're starting now.
No, we actually started before. I did that to Frank
Uh-oh.
Robertson too. He's like, so wait, I asked him a question. He's like, wait, are we live? And I was like, oh yeah, well, we were live 10 minutes ago. I just don't tell people that.
Oh God!
We
Don't make
got-
me look bad.
we got the warm up in. We're gonna. Okay, I used to say easiest question, hardest question of the day. Who is Heather Laufer?
Ah, that's a terrible question.
It's a great question.
Yeah. So I mean, she's evolving, right? Like we all are. I learn about myself every day, and I'm super thankful at this time when I can look back at like things I've done and things I've accomplished, and I'm like, yeah, no, you can do this because that's who that's who you are. Like that's what you've done. Like, and that wasn't easy, and this isn't easy, but like the work ethic is there. I'm a hard worker, actually, and that's probably what, like maybe one of my greatest traits. It's maybe pushed me to where I got to in skating, and my like itty bitty. I'm such a newbie at cycling. My cycling career.
It is a career. It is.
Yeah. I'm like learning stuff. It's so funny to me in cycling where I'm just like, yeah, I feel like I should have known that, like, just based on, but it's similar but different sports. But
That's gonna be a question. Don't worry.
yeah, okay.
Like, don't steal my
that
thunder
coming.
here.
But I just I enjoy pushing myself. I always want to see how far I could take it. I jump in with both feet, which is some great stories around that. And I kind of find myself like, it's definitely sink or swim for me. And I choose swimming. But I don't know, like I'm evolving, and I love where I came from, and I really love where I'm going. And it's a really neat time in my life to be able to like who you are, and to feel like you're going in a really good direction, and you've got a great group of friends around you, and there's a lot of positivity. So I don't know that I answered your question.
No, you just did, and actually in the most unique way. People are like, I'm a father and I'm this old and I live here. And you were like, I'm evolving and this is where my like this is, yeah, incredible. So to give then even more context, if people don't know who you are and what we're talking about, inline skating, is that the correct sport name?
Yeah, so it's actually roller speed skating.
Okay.
Because there's quad, and inline grew out of the quad skating, and we had no idea. We're all quad skaters. Well, that generation, we're all quad skaters, and I was so fortunate. I had a coach. His name's Joe Cotter, and he was an ex-world team. I had no idea. I skated when I was little. I had taken like 8 years off. I came back to the sport, and I was like, I want to do this. Like, let's go. And I started on the quad skates again. And Joe was like, he just made you believe that you could do anything. Like, so there was never a doubt in my mind that I couldn't. He's like, you're our secret weapon. I was just like, what? Yeah, right on. I am like, so he, because we do relays and stuff like that in the sport. And he was just like, inlines are the future. And I was like, okay, let's get some inlines. And it was the learning curve. It was so crazy. We got these inline skates, and they were plastic, and the company that made them was Zanstra. And this is like early 90s. And we put these on our feet, and we had like no idea. We couldn't control them. We didn't know how to stop. We took the brakes off because we figured we didn't need those because we were racing, right? We were stopping. Brakes only slow you down. So we take the brakes off, we get on these skates, and we're like, all right, let's figure this out. And that really gave us a jump on like, looking back, like on our competitors, because Joe believed so deeply that this was the future, and it turned out it was. And they were crazy fast, like they were just inherently fast, whereas quad skates are not inherently fast just because of the physics, right?
Yeah.
And I'm actually super proud of my quad skating, my titles and stuff in quads, because it was really hard to be fast on those things. And it wasn't like you weren't putting on an apparatus that was inherently fast. Like you had to figure out how to make those things go fast.
So this list of palmarès that I'm about to list off, I did not realize any of these were quad related. So let me throw some of these out there. So people,
did you Google me?
so I got to do a little bit of looking around, but this probably isn't even everything. It's, and I don't even have the exact numbers because it's just, all over the place.
It's staggering.
Several national championship titles in skating, indoor, outdoor, track, road, 5-ish world championship titles, World Games medalist, Pan American Games champion, Pan Pacific champion, Olympic Sports Festival champion. I don't know what a sports festival is, so you can tell me about that. But really also most contextual for the people here, only one national championship in cycling, which we're like, whatever. I mean, it's like, we all want more. I really, I only have one Masters national championship. I'm still like, I keep asking myself, how many years do I have a legit chance to go after the amateur title? I don't know the answer to that. I'm still going to do it. But it's going to be like, oh, that old guy's still here. Still getting 20th, buddy.
I'm going to be right beside you.
Maybe next year. But so without getting too granular on the skating part, so some of that is on a quad, like what I used to use at the roller rink.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
And then
definitely national, indoor national titles, but even I have world championship titles on quads, and those are, I'm quite proud of those, because it was really hard to make them go fast, and it wasn't like we had any I don't know, one of those world championships is on home turf, and I have inline from the same year. So when the sport was transitioning, when we hit the world championships, it was like you had to skate 4 races on quad skates. And then there was 3 races. They didn't care what you did because they didn't really think inlines were that big of a deal. So 4 races, definitely you had your quad skates on, and 3 races, you could wear whatever. An obvious choice was wear your inline skates in those races. And it was so profound that the next year it was like, okay, 3 races, you have to wear your quad skates. 4 races, you can wear whatever. And then by the next year it was, forget it. It's all inline races.
So it's over. So when I buy some skates down here in Florida, I'm going inline, is what you're telling me.
Absolutely. Well, I don't know. Because I feel like you'd miss something. Like quad skating is amazing, or you could jam skate, or.
Oh my God. I can't believe you said that. This girl, what I was going to say was jamming backwards, skating backwards, going the wrong way in the bike lane, but had no fear with her headphones on, like against traffic. And I was like, she was just like this floating moment of zen going down. I was like, if a Mack truck comes, that truck is getting trashed by this girl. She's just plowing through everything. It was pretty amazing. But
that is amazing.
So
I love my quad skates.
So you find cycling, and when you found cycling, was there initially a similarity between the two sports that drew you to cycling, or what was it that you were like, "Ooh, I like this biking thing"? Besides the
no, actually,
Did you start on an inline bike first, or did you do?
No, that's not a thing. So it's funny. I actually got in really great shape doing yoga, and I used to only put on my skates when I was upset, and I just needed an outlet to just go hammer myself into the ground. And I was having one of those moments, and I was out skating around Lake Hefner, and I ran into a fellow skater and cyclist. His name's Alex Fidat, and he was out riding around, and I was like, "Man, can I get on your wheel?" And he was like, "Yeah." And so it was like pulling me around the lake, and I don't know how fast we were going, but it felt like so fast. And I was like, oh, I can still do this. And so I was like, I'm doing this. Like I'm going back to the sport. And I got a bunch of equipment, and I went and I entered a super micro local indoor inline skating event. And I stepped on the line with like maybe one other skater. And I was so nervous that I almost threw up. And I was like, oh, that's bad. Like, that's really, I need to get my nerves under control. How do I do that? Because at this point, there's not inline skating events every weekend. There's not, these, like it used to be when I raced, like we could race every weekend. Like that's not happening in the sport. And I had to figure out a way to train the nerves out of me. And I was like, well, bicycles race every weekend. So they raced, actually, I was like, I could race twice a week because we had the Wheeler crits here. And so I show up on my commuter bike to Wheeler crit. My first crit race ever is on a Trek 1000 set up for commuters. It's like a 58 centimeter bike. It's like way too big for me. I've got like the rack on the back for the bikes. I've got my pump is on the bike, my lights are on the bike, and I'm just like, I'm racing. Like I need to race.
This is awesome.
And I didn't even have sleeves. They let me race, thankfully. This picture, I love Biff Stevens took a picture of me that day, which is like one of my favorite pictures ever, because I'm just like, and you can see the pump, you can like, I was just out there, and I think they were making fun of me, which I'm totally okay with that. They're just like, but she had consistent lap times, and I was like, yeah, I did. And so like I went back again, and like, I was so off the bat because this bike weighed a metric ton, but like I was like, that's not why I'm here. Like I'm here to train, and I'm here to race. And so that's how I got into cycling. And
but let me ask you a question. How did you train the nerves? How did that, because most people are hearing this and they're like, wait, so you left a sport that you were super comfortable with and super nervous, and then we're randomly like, I'm just gonna go bike race. Like that would make me more nervous. I don't know anything about biking.
Yeah, well, I mean, but I know racing, right? So
was
to
it,
me, it was like,
was it nerves because you had expectations of yourself skating, and cycling you came up and you're like, I'm not here for the win.
Yeah,
I'm not getting the W.
No, well, I was like, but I'm always there for the W. Like, and it doesn't even matter. What I've found is it doesn't even matter if it's anything that I'm even good at. Because like I ran a marathon and I was there for the win, but I wasn't in the race at all. And I was like, I'm still racing this to win. So it's just like, that's ingrained in me. And it's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me that I'm even proficient at it. Like I want to win and figure out how to win.
Where does that come from, do you think?
Oh yeah, I don't know. Like I don't know.
Your
Like
coach, it was like, you are a secret weapon, you can do anything? Or is this Heather at age 10?
This is Heather at age 4, probably.
Going for the W.
My first national championships was at age 4, and
What?
my dad was my coach, and it was like, you win or you're walking home. And I was like, wow, I better win.
For skating?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay.
So, I skated on wooden wheels. Like how crazy is that?
My God.
And it's not because I'm super old. It's because I started super young. Okay. Let's clarify.
Heather's 28 if you can't tell. So
yeah, I'm 28.
That's okay. So, well, then what do you think's driving you today? Is it the W? Is it success? Is it like just the love for sport and evolution of yourself? What do you think is like really pushing you?
I really feel it's the latter
Can we add
now.
some context? How old are you now?
I'm 40. Well, I'm 47.
I'm like, we can check this online. So just be.
I was born in 72. How old does that make me?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I'll turn 48 this year.
82, 92, 02, 12. Yeah, sure. Cool. People are like, wow, these guys are not smart.
But I'm not as a mathematician.
Yeah, we're not doing that. So 47. So sorry, go ahead. What do you think is the driving force behind you?
Yeah, I just want to see, like, my goals and things kind of evolve as I, gain interested. Like, it's for cycling at first, it was like this cross training. I was on the bike, like, ridiculous. Like, I was only on the bike to race, right? Because I wanted to sort out that nervous issue. And then I was like, oh, this is really great training. This could be something super fun too. And I was like, on 2 days a week training, I was going to races, and I was like hitting a podium. Like, I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. Like, so there's an adrenaline to chasing those wins. But it is very much about, pushing myself and just seeing how far I can take something. It's skating. When I returned to skating, I had left skating at a really young age. I didn't know there was a U.S. team, and I come back to skating. I was like, oh, there's a U.S. team. Well, that's my goal. Like, let's do this. Like, I'm going for that. So it's evolving within the sport as well, and just finding a direction. But I think mostly it is about pushing myself and just seeing how far I can take something.
Mm-hmm. Do you see, getting into the sort of training side of everything, is training for skating similar in training for cycling in terms of like tapering, volume, progression, or like, and the reason I asked that, just to add some context of like, when we're trying to understand, what do you, over your career of sports, what have you seen sort of change and evolve that's helped you to continue to get better? Because I think a lot of athletes, they do something, they find their magic thing, and then they like maybe hit a plateau. And I'm talking like grand scheme, and then they like change some things up, but then they find something out and they like take that next step. Like, a lot of people think it's this, when it's like stair step, then, oh, I'm kind of the same. Oh man, stair step. And I actually just had this conversation with a guy who was like, I'm not as good right now as I was last August. And I'm like, thank God, dude, it's February. Like, yeah. you don't want to be as good as you were last August. Last August, you had 3 months of racing in your legs and like smashing. So what do you think's changed besides knowledge of just like the depth of you as an athlete?
Well, there's no linear progression, like you said. Like, there's always those peaks and valleys. And we use the same muscle groups, use them a tad bit differently. Mm-hmm. And like, kind of going back to the comparison of the two sports, I always felt like I had an advantage being a skater, because I'm in skating position, which is basically the position that you're in on the bike without a bike underneath me.
Yeah.
So I am maintaining that position, and there's no gears, right? No gears, no masters. Like, that's all your output to make yourself go faster. So shifting is like a thing I have to still figure out. Like, oh no, wrong gear. Oh, okay, yeah, like in my head during a race is a crazy kind of place. Like that was a mistake.
Don't get behind Heather for.
Well, yeah. So.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but the volume, so we have all this power that we're putting out, and it's just a matter of trying to make yourself go forward. Skate training, when back in the day, like 6 to 8 hours a day was training. Like clearly I can't do that now, for obvious reasons. Like I have a family and, I have to work, and this can't be my singular focus. But it wasn't like all on the skates, and there was never went out and skated for 4 hours. Like, I'm on the bike for 4 hours, and that's like a normal cycling weekend day, right? Like that's what you do.
What's a long skate then? An hour and a half?
I would say yes. To put that in perspective, I did a race. It was Athens to Atlanta, from Athens, Georgia to Atlanta, Georgia. It's 85 miles, the longest I had ever been on my skates. And that was like 5 hours. And I didn't train for that. Like, I had no idea.
Ooh.
And it was either up or it was down. It was terrible. It rained the whole time. And I was like, hope this rain stops. And I was like, no, it needs to keep raining, because my bearings are definitely going to seize up after this, right?
Oh, God.
So that's not normally something we do. Like my longest race was 20K, which I laugh at now, because I'm just like, I'm just going to go do a 20K on the bike. Like, that's not a thing. Like, you're not even warmed up. Yeah.
What's training wise then? So what have you kept in your tool bag? So you're like changing up the duration when you're talking about not being just on skates. So do you lift?
So I did lift up until my crash.
Okay.
And that's kind of changed things for me, because
which was when?
That was the 2018.
Okay.
It was still land run.
Okay.
Now it's yeah. That crash was pretty. That's the hardest I've ever hit the earth. First and foremost, I broke a lot of things, but they had discovered I had a heart problem that I didn't know I had, and that was like my biggest. I didn't know that I was ever going to come back to racing because of that. Like, I didn't know what the limitations were of that heart condition, or what I would be allowed to do. And one of the things that I'm not allowed to do is a Valsalva maneuver, right? So luckily I race with my mouth open, and I don't ever hold my breath. So lifting heavy is out for me now.
Okay.
Yeah. So
what's a Valsalva maneuver?
It's like you create a bunch of intra-abdominal pressure.
Okay.
Yeah, like.
So we won't be deadlifting together.
We won't be. I'm sorry, and that breaks my heart, because I loved my gym time. So.
Yeah, it is a different beast. I'm like, I look back, God, if I wish I had been lifting in like 2013. I'm just like, it just took everything to the next level for me. But hey, no better time than the present. But
yeah, but I'm able to keep my plyometrics, which are I feel like those are a game changer. Skating, if a cyclist could add skating into their program, it's a game changer.
For sprinting, are you doing plyo?
Definitely for sprinting. Yeah.
Are you doing plyo all year, or at specific points of your training?
No, I do it all year, and it's mostly to stay, because I haven't left skating, and I have goals for skating still, and it just keeps me. I can stay in, I can put my skates on and be in skating position without, being trashed the next day. At that load. And behind me, that's my slide board.
Behind the bike.
Behind my most amazing bicycle ever.
Cool. When I was looking at the bike, and I was like, I don't know why she's calling that a slide board. Oh, the actual board behind it is a slide board.
Yeah, that's a slide board training.
That's a cool color. Is that brown?
Yeah, it's almost like what our red dirt is here.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. It's that stuff I don't like.
Bike.
Yeah, I went down at the same land run. I got crashed out. I was super, super sad.
Yeah. was terrible. It's a really bad day to,
DNA took some knocks that day.
we sure did. Wow.
Mm.
Yeah, I spent 4 days in the hospital.
I'm glad we're talking about it and giggling and not worse. That's for sure.
For sure.
Do you have any, and maybe, so how long have you been, so cycling has been what, 3 years then? 4 years?
5, but
5.
like not a focus.
Okay.
5. Like,
But enough that I could ask you.
The first 2 years, it was just like I was on the bike, because there's no way to replicate like the early risers ride and my training on skates, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way for me to replicate the racing at Wheeler Crit, right? Like those intervals and that just maximum effort for that, however long your race is. There's just no way to do that yourself. And I really like being around people. And when I'm on my skates, unless Rob and Alex invite me out, I'm skating by myself. It's just not super fun, but it's just part of it.
So do you have any favorite intervals, speaking of those, that help you get ready for a big race? Like, that if you can crush a set of X, Y, and Z, you're thinking, I'm really ready for this. Or maybe it's going and performing well at the early risers ride with a bunch of dudes who also race. Is there any like litmus test that you like to give yourself?
So I race in my head a lot. And so when I take an interval, when I take a workout, because racing isn't these exact increments of rest and race and rest and race, right? So when I'm able to, get into like one of those really hard interval workouts and then change it to where like I'm supposed to be resting, but Racer X went on a break, right? So it's just like I break, I don't take that rest period. I get out of the saddle, I chase down my imaginary opponent, and and then I stay in it as long as I can, and then I come back to the interval where I've always done that. Like I've create race scenarios in my head when I'm training, and I make it as unpredictable as possible, or predictable, but like with varying increments of time. Like I would do trash can sprints, right? Or sign sprints, and mostly trash can sprints out at Lake Hefner when I'm skating, and it's just like trash can, have to sprint to the next trash can, and then like who even knows like where the next trash can is? I have no idea. So it's just like trying to stay on the gas as long as you can. Like when I hit those, I like really feel like I'm ready. And then I get super pumped too when if I could go to like boxcar derby and actually throw punches, then I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to race, right? Like, because they attacked and I attacked them, and they attacked me, and I was able to get on the wheel, and like those kind of things kind of let me know, yeah, I'm gonna have a good race this coming weekend. Or
is your training always that sort of like race unpredictable stuff, or do you ever do like structured intervals?
So it's funny. I don't know what my capacity is with a structured program, because I really haven't had that. I went into my first national championship, well, my only national championship, but the first nationals I went to for
Is that
cycling,
in what discipline?
for cycling.
What like road, crit?
Well, I went and did them all.
Which did you win?
I won the crit.
Okay.
But what's funnier, I borrowed a time trial bike, because I was like, well, there's a time trial. Like, I might as well do that. I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
So I borrowed my friend Laurent's time trial bike, totally not set up for me. Like, I'd never ridden it before. And I was like, I think this is right. And I get up, I almost fall over at the start. They're like, what are you even doing? Like, I had no idea. I'm like, I don't know. And like, I fought the bike the whole way. Oh, it was just a terrible experience. And then I was so thankful that the time trial was first, and then we had a rest day, because you use muscles in a totally different way on a time trial. No clue, but I had a lot. I almost hit the podium too. I was like, wow. Like,
Where was this at? Was this in Georgia?
Atlanta. Yeah, it was in Georgia. Augusta, Georgia. Yeah.
So I don't know what it was about that day. I literally said the same thing. Like, I hated that it was the time trial and then a day off, because I'm like, God, I got to spend 4 days here in this. No offense, Augusta, not the greatest place to spend time in. At least my experience, the 3 times or 4 times I've had to go down there, I was wrecked after that time trial. I remember it was so hot. The race was super hard. I remember being in the hotel talking, I think, to maybe Patrick or something. I'm like, dude, from how long was it? The TT was a 40K for us. And I was like, feel like I just did a 4-hour road race. Like, I was,
I felt like I was out there forever, battling my bicycle.
Gosh, that was a tough one. So what do you think has been a small thing that has impacted your training? And this actually is super applicable to even skating, in which you have more experience with, or cycling, but just where you're like, oh man, I mean, I would say it's, what's yours?
So nutrition.
Oh yes. Let's go down that road.
Yeah. So, in skating, we don't eat during our races. Like, that's not a thing. Like, our races aren't long enough. Like, we don't keep a water bottle with us or anything like that. Like, the last marathon, the last world championships I did was in 2015, which is like, it's one of my favorite, because after 20 years out of the sport, like completely out of the sport, I laced up my skates and was able to make the U.S. team and represent the United States again at a world championship. So that's like a big stoke moment for me. And that marathon, I skated the marathon, and that marathon took like an hour and 13 minutes or something like that. Like, that's not even, it's like no time at all on a bike. So
you guys don't crush a gel.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I guess we could, but
You'd
the
lose
gels.
aeroness.
Huh.
Would you lose like your position, like your aero position?
No. No.
I don't know. I'm not a skater.
No.
I see you guys are like little rockets. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're just our events just aren't long enough to really, in my estimation, to worry about that. So, which was a huge thing for me going into site. I had no idea, like, that you had to take food with you on a ride. Like, I did this I cracked so many times so hard because I was like, I was supposed to bring food, like, what? Because
you made it fine on the 2-hour rides. It was a 3-hour ride that you were like, shoot.
Oh, it was crazy. It's like you hit a wall and there's no crawling over this wall. And then Alex, he was on me, and the one that's like so prevalent in my mind, and he was just like, well, where's your food? And I was just like, food? It was just like, what do you mean? It's the house? Like, he's like, here, eat this. And I was like, oh, you come back to life. And that was like a huge thing for me.
I think I remember my first bonk. I was in a road race like 90 miles east of where I lived. And we were in a group of some Cat 5, and we're in a group of, I don't know, there's like 10 of us left. And I ended up doing this road race, like, I don't know, probably 5-6 more times. So I can distinctly remember the downhill. And all of a sudden I got really dizzy, or I thought was dizzy. And I was like, whoa, what's going on? And I was like, and I remember my vision being like, and I was like, whoa, something's wrong. And I like went to keep, I was like, I'm in the race. Like I got to keep going. And my body, it was just like, no, you're going to like coast now. And I hit the brakes and I like pulled over. I'm like, what the hell just happened? And I went to keep riding. And I was like, I'm exhausted. I finally got back and I was like, dude, something went wrong. And someone's like, that's called bonking, dude. Like you need to eat food. And I think I want to say that I felt like I had done a race before that. So I feel like I knew that I had to have gels. I just was in race mode. Like I wasn't thinking of eating. Like I probably had them with me or something and just didn't eat them, or I definitely,
and that was,
I didn't
and
know
that
how
was
many
like,
you had to eat.
that was the next trick, was like, well, figuring out like how to nourish yourself, and then being able to get to your food. Like
What?
I was like, I have to let go of the handlebars. Like I can't let go of the handlebars.
Yeah, somebody told me though, they're like, since we spend like 4 or 5 months on a trainer in upstate New York, they're like, when you're on the trainer, practice not looking down and getting your water bottle. And I like was doing this inside. I'm like, oh, it's actually kind of difficult. I'm glad I'm practicing this in a bike that's not moving. And like practice reaching in your pocket. Like this is great. I actually never thought I should tell people that. Like, because there's a guy that I coached. We did like on-road coaching, and he was horrible at eating food. I'm like, this is great, man. Go get on your trainer and practice this. Like when you watch TV, sit on your bike and do this, because that needs to be second nature. How are you?
Well, and then figuring out what foods are conducive, like getting to your food. How difficult the package is going to be to open it. Like pre-opening packages for races is now a thing. And I don't care how much goo or whatever gets all over me. Like,
Ew, you pre-open goos?
heck yeah.
Oh, can't get on board with that.
But part of it too is I like have such eco guilt that like I don't want that part I tore off. Like I don't want that flying away. I don't want to think about that. So like
it won't fly away. It goes in your mouth.
Back in the pocket.
Yeah.
But then like what can I digest? Like what actually can I choke down during a race? Like it's and gravel racing is a whole nother thing. Like I can't do Pop-Tarts on a gravel race because like you hit a bump and they crumble. There goes my nutrition.
Yeah.
So.
And I actually didn't bring this up with James Walsh because we were talking about carb loading. He came on with an I Love Carbs shirt, and we were working together before some races, and he had he's been like ultra runner. So a lot of things where you're not eating as much because you're not burning as much. And so he was a good example of somebody that like he could do long races, and we talked about carb loading, and he read this blog. He's like, I'm going to try this. And he's like, oh God, dude, I feel really weird. And I'm like, well, yeah, you can't go from eating 60 grams of carbs an hour to all of a sudden 100 and expect your body to even be able to process it the right way. So that's the one thing that is people are taking out their own experience, and we read an article and now an athlete, an experienced trained athlete can absorb 120 grams of carbs an hour. Everybody wants to do that. It's like, you can't go 0 to 100. I actually I just posted this morning a picture of myself. I got a memory of like me on my first training camp 11 years ago in California. I had no idea what I was doing with anything. And it's just like 11 years later, 60 watt less FTP, like there's no shortcuts to this. But even things that we're talking about like nutrition, you need to go along your own journey with it. And it's great to pick up these pearls, but people just want to rush it, and your body needs time to catch up to it. So I think,
well, and also there's don't ever do anything race day. like you practice in the training times, right? Like what foods are going to work for you. Like it's a bad thing to figure out you made a really bad choice race day. When you go to eat your like 10 guesses how I figured out I can't do Pop-Tarts for a gravel race, right?
Well, so this is actually a really good segue to when you're talking about having the ability to go race a bunch. Like you had Wheeler Crit, which for people who don't know, OKC is like a Tuesday night crit series. You can use it as training. Is it USAC sanctioned? Or
Yes,
you can go race it and get points.
Yeah, Yeah, you could.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Previously.
it's a quote unquote real crit, but either way, it's even a training crit is a real crit. They have weekend stuff, they have group rides. How do you think, I'll have some newer athletes or people newer to sport as an adult who are like, hey, do you think I should go do this race? And I'm like, yes, you should.
The answer is always yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I am about to make a podcast. I do these quick, like 5 to 8 minute ones, and maybe I won't because I'll spoil it now. This guy was like, we were talking about aerobic fitness, and some of his goals were in 2022. And I'm like, so I'm assuming because of COVID, like you're waiting till next year. He's like, no, I need to work on my aerobic fitness. I really think I should shelve the racing this year. Don't you agree? And I was like, no. So no. So go and learn, because watts is maybe half of this. All the other stuff that happens in the race is really important. So my question to you is, as someone who clearly is like a proponent of go to the race, go race, you said it yourself, go learn. What's your mindset of in sport of how you get prepared for these events? Does it differ from a Tuesday night crit, or are you always practicing mindfulness, whatever that might mean to you? Or are you like, Brendan, I'm Heather, I don't need to be thinking about mindset. I just go and crush every time I'm on the bike.
No, but I don't. I'm a proponent for like go race. Like you want to race. Like, the only way you can race is by racing. Like
why?
It's such a different. It's just such a different thing. Like racing is not training. And also I want to say, like, you've got to let all that other stuff go. Like I don't care what my FTP is. I don't care what anybody else's FTP is. And I always took this into skating too. The fastest person doesn't always win.
Hell
like,
yeah.
There's so much more going on. I don't care how fast you are. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your stat, none of that. Like if we're on the line together, at the very least, we're equal, right? Mm-hmm. We are on that line together, and I'm going to give it my all. You're going to give it your all. And whatever happens. And I don't let any of that stuff in my headspace. I had a friend, and he was like, "Oh, I've always wanted to race," and I'm like, "Go race! There's a race Tuesday. Like, what are you talking about? Always wanted to. Like, races are out there. Just go to them." And and I don't want to hear the equipment excuse either. Like, I raced on a 10-ton Trek 1000 from the 80s with a rack on it, my pump. Like it doesn't.
I don't hear the equipment as much, because most people, and it's not a knock, is I like that people come in super adamant, but like people have Gucci'd out first bikes, and I'm like, all my athletes know that I'm not the tech guy. Like we have a WhatsApp chat that has like 50 people in there, and there's a lot of like tech people. And I think it's like giggles if I even, sometimes I'm like, all right, I'm gonna chime in on this one, and I'm just like, ha ha ha, here we go. I mean,
I will make it work.
Yeah, I'll make it work. I think tech is great. I'm not on the forefront. There's a lot of stuff that comes out in cycling that does not work 3.5 hours down the road in a race when you're crushing it, and I don't want to be the one to find that out. I'm okay waiting 9-10 months until it's like vetted. But yeah, I mean, that was actually one of the best things that I saw. I went and did a race. I was visiting my old coach in Colorado. There's a local road race. The then pro team Dewey Solar, there was a guy there who just looked like a freaking ox on a not new bicycle with old aluminum training wheels. And this dude crushed. I think I came in 8th, maybe. 5 guys got away at one point, I believe. He was definitely one of them. And he was not racing on the fastest bike. And to a whole other point, he was probably there training. He didn't care if he won or whatever. But yeah, the ego gets in the way for a lot of people. And I'm trying to think of who was last talking about this. A lot of athletes will never truly get to their best because they're always tapering a little bit for every little event. They're never really letting themselves go overloaded, and they don't,
Oh yeah.
train
Would
through.
train through.
Because like I gotta beat Christy. Christy's gonna be there, and I can't let her win this race. If I don't beat her every single time, then she might think she's better than me. It's like let Christy get the W, because you're going for the bigger one that Christy's not even in the competition. She's not even thinking about the world championships.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like, there's, we train through races, and I don't want to say that I didn't learn from my wins, right? Because that's not true. I learned I could win. Like my first international medal, I was like, I can do this. And that was like empowering, coming off the heels of my first world championships. I got schooled so hard. I mean, I went into it as like, and this is, I don't want to sound arrogant. I went into it as a favorite American, because I had at the trials, I had won 4 of the 7 races, placed in the other 3. Like I was like on fire, and I got to Worlds, and man, did I get schooled super hard. Like we're talking, I had no idea, and it was in Italy, and we trade our tracksuits and things, and I traded off my U.S. gear for this Italian sweatsuit that didn't fit. I was a big sprinter girl, and I wore it every day to remind myself of what happened in Rome. Every day I put on it is super cool Italian sweatsuit. Put it on every day to remind myself of what happened and that I needed to train harder, to not be in those situations. And then on the cusp of that training from that total butt kicking I took, I medaled at the World Games, and I was like, wow, like I'm actually stepping on this podium.
Wow.
And it was so empowering. And so you do learn from winning, but God, you learn so much more from the races that you don't win. Mm-hmm. And like how to go back and like, analyze, what happened, or how did I get into that situation? How did I get boxed in? Right. Mm-hmm. Like what in my training can I change to where that doesn't happen? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I want to empower, my community as well. Like the athlete that you like, whoever this girl is that, this race I'm training through, I want her to experience that, because I want her to take that fuel and be like, I beat her, and now she's stoked and on fire, and she's going to train harder to keep beating me, and I'm going to train harder to beat her next time. Like, mm-hmm. And that's how we always did it in the skating community. It was like, yeah, like I want you at your best because I want to be the best. So mm-hmm. let's keep working at it, and let's make each other strong so we can go accomplish the things that we want to accomplish and take it where we want to go.
So it's interesting because there was an athlete that was talking to me about, I love that he wanted to think through a lot of the race before the race happened. And he's like, I know you're going to tell me just go race, but like, I'm trying to understand a lot. And I told him a quote that a guy told me one time. Somebody was in our club in upstate New York. They were complaining that we were doing this course like 2 or 3 weeks in a row. They had 8 courses they did. And for whatever reason, it just came up on the schedule. And he's like, guys, and this was like an elder statesman of the club. He's like, guys, it doesn't matter if we race the same freaking course all summer long. It's how the racers race the course. And he said that, and I'm thinking, I'm like, what is this dude talking about? Like, I know there's a hill there. He's like, yeah, dude, but somebody might attack a mile out from the hill. And then somebody might be like, he's like, the sport is so dynamic. We can go on the same features over and over again, and it will be a different race every single time. Do you agree with that? And then kind of to like circle back on the mindset thing, like how do you think about races beforehand? Do you think about the people, the race, the moves, or are you more just in your own mind getting yourself ready in some way to be at your best no matter what happens when the gun goes off?
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a lot in one question, but
yeah, no. So you can't ever predict a race, but I have gone into races where I decided, like, I'm going here, I'm going at, it's like I'm going on this lap and there's nothing you can do about it. Like, I've had that mindset. I was also super, super strong, right? Like at that time. And I felt like I could make that assertion. I could change the race. But most of the time.
And did you do that? You did that? You would follow?
I did.
And is this in skating or in cycling?
Skating.
Okay. Okay.
Cycling, I'm like, oh my God.
So that's just to clarify though, that's just that you were stronger and you're like, okay, I'm going to go boss on people right now. So now that's just because you were stronger than everybody. Like you could turn the screw.
Yeah.
So slightly different than if you were racing your peers at the World Championships.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just so people who hear this aren't like, well, Heather told me that I could go at lap 5 at the crit. And so slightly different. Like
I would never go at lap 5 in a crit.
So Heather finally just flexed on people. Thank God. It was about time. So, and if you guys want more details on that, listen to the Robin Carpenter interview because he talks about that. He's like, okay, well, maybe that's because I was just stronger than everybody. I'm like, okay, let's talk about most people that listen to this are not going to have that opportunity. So,
but like
going in a race against your peers, let's say, where you don't know.
Going in racing against my peers is why I train in my brain. You got to be ready for anything, right? That's why if I'm doing intervals, I throw in that extra interval when I'm supposed to be resting because whoever from whatever country just went on a flyer and I'm the domestique and I have to chase her down and that's my job and I have to be able to do my job if I want to be put in any more races. Like that was our thing. So I want to be able to react to anything. I also, have in the back of my head, the fastest person doesn't always win. Like there's so many variables to racing. You don't know what's really going to happen. You don't know I also in my head was like at that level when I'm racing my peers, physically, we are all the same. And it comes down to who wants it more. And if you're going to, if somebody attacks and you're just like, you're defeated, then you're beaten, right? So if somebody attacks and then you've got to jump on that wheel and you've got to go with them and you've got to be in the race and feel the energy of the race and be ready to do whatever it takes, even if you're like 300-meter sprinter at the end or, like they go early. So you're like, all right, the race started now. Like I've got to adapt to this because I'm not going to be in the 300-meter sprint at the end of this race if I don't jump on what they're doing. So
yeah, no, feeling the energy is huge. And I had made a comment to him. I'm like, it's really hard for me to put into words since you haven't raced much, but like, let's talk about this more after you've done 10 races. And then you'll see what I mean. Like just so much happens that it's great to know where the wind's coming from. It's great to know where the hills are. It's great to know where the turns are. That's all fine and good, but that's not going to predict how it all unfolds when you're actually there in 3 days. And I think also the thing that just people don't mention is you got to get there. You need to get your number. You need to get your bike out. Your people are going to come to talk to you. You got to pin up. You got to get your food. There's all these little things. The first race I got to, I was like, oh my God, there's so much crap to do right now that my other teammate then, as we were experienced, I like getting there early. He's like, do we have to go an hour and a half before? And I'm like, yeah, because remember that other race where we were rushing? Like, I don't want to do all this training to save half an hour at the hotel. Like, let's just go and be there. Now, if it's 90 degrees, come with a strategy, sit in air conditioning, like fine. But there's just all these things before the race even that can happen that can throw you off your game, that it's like, just go practice, racing, which means the whole weekend. Like it's not only the race. There's a lot before and after that you have to do. Like we're talking about nationals, you got to learn how to recover.
Oh yeah. So much more important now than 20 years ago.
Well, so actually that's going to be, I know you got to go soon and I don't want to take up too much of your time. My last question was going to be, what do you find yourself having to adapt with as an athlete as you kind of move through cycling and skating, and just as an athlete, but then also as a master's athlete now? Has that added any extra whatever?
Yeah. I just really have to be more attuned. I can't cut corners. I can't not do the rest. I have to do the sleep. I have to do the nutrition. I have to do the warm up. I have to break down, especially with skating. I made this mistake. Actually, last year I tore my quads because I didn't practice my start, right? And I was at an indoor event and I was racing super fast girls, and I was like, we had negotiated for me to challenge down and race the junior world class because there wasn't anybody in senior world class for me to race. And it was the 500 meter was first, and I was like, I gotta win the start because I know me. I will throw the pass and I will cream this girl. Like I wanted to avoid that at all costs.
Cream her, like run her over?
I took out my best friend
throw
in a
some
race.
bows and
Well, no. I mean, I would throw the pass, right? Like, and we're on like 100-meter track.
So is that like dive bombing a corner in a crit?
Sorta, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just like a not great move. Like something that people are gonna be like, Heather.
Well, right, but like when I'm in race mode.
Right. I got you.
Yeah, maybe. So I wanted to avoid that at all costs. So I was like, I'm going to beat her off the start. No worries. I'm going to beat her off the start. And I went down for the start. It didn't even occur to me that I hadn't done a start like that since like 1995. My friend in the center of the floor, he's like, after the race, he's just like, because I tore my quads immediately. He's like, so how long has it been since you've done that kind of start? And I'm like, he's like, since 95. I'm like, yeah. But that was a mistake. Like I didn't train my start. And that was like, used to be so ingrained in our practices that it wasn't like something I had to be thoughtful about. But now, and I don't even think it would have mattered 25 years ago had I not trained the start before the race, but now it so matters. Like, yeah. So every aspect of the race and everything that I can give some forethought to and prepare for it has to be done. Performance and to not injure myself.
So really what shines through to me from you as an athlete, which is like super refreshing and inspiring, is just you have this sort of, I guess, I don't know if it's necessarily personality, but the traits of like, you're willing to try something new. You're willing to go put your best foot forward, even if it's not the best foot on the day. Like when you're showing up in this huge bike, like whatever, I'm here to race. I'm gonna go figure this out. The faster race bike comes down the road. I think through being open, you just seem like an open person. Like you found a ton of growth through that as an athlete. And I'm sure as a woman, like any parting words for people that are trying, I think a lot of this sport, and I hear it, we as cyclists need to do things in the community to make people feel more welcome. It's very intimidating when people come to their first race. You show up at a wheeler crit, if it's not someone with your personality or accolades as an athlete that understands how to really approach a new activity. A lot of adults, I remember myself, I went to my first bike race. I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like I was an adult that went to work. I went home and kind of like dicked around, and then I went back to work the next day. Like getting into this race community was a whole new social experience again. It was almost like I felt like I remember being like, this is weird. This is like just meeting new people, but I was really intimidated. And I think what's maybe something that comes to mind that like someone who's watching this right now is maybe like, I really want, like you said, that guy, I've always wanted to race. For some reason, he hasn't gone to a race. How can people just dive in? What do you I think it's in you, but what's the like, you don't have fear of this, like putting yourself out there. How can people do that more?
So, but I mean, I laugh at myself because I almost didn't. This is super personal, but I almost didn't go back to skating because I have spider veins, and I was like, oh, they're gonna make fun of my legs, and then I was just like, that's so dumb. Oh, but then I was like, well, my shorts mostly cover them, so I don't find in my house. My little saying with my girls is reasons and excuses, they sound the same, right? Like you can talk yourself out of anything, you can rationalize it in your brain, or you can just go do it and let the chips fall and let it be a great experience. And I just want people to go and do it. Women specifically, don't wait to have your hand held to do it. Like go and do it. Like there doesn't have to be a special category for you. There doesn't have to be a special female only event. Like you can go out there and you can do all of it, and don't let there be any barriers. Like this is supposed to be the future is female, right? Like go, like take it, like it's there.
Plus, that would almost, and I'm sure there's going to be a woman listening. This is like, Brendan, you're a dumbass, but like that would empower me more because a lot of guys think they're automatically going to beat the woman. There's a woman in Memphis that we had this group ride. Shout out Denise. We had, I'll say it's relatively fast. It's definitely brisk. I mean, you're going all out at times. And we get to the end, there's 20 people. And I look back and this lady is in the group. And I'm like, yo, did she, like, that wasn't slow. And I like, Brendan, you're such a dick. Like, don't assume that she's going to get dropped. I mean, a lot of dudes got dropped. And for me, I was like, man, I hope more women see someone like this coming out and just mixing it up. Like, if I don't know. And the only reason I feel comfortable saying that is like, I don't know. I just, there's things that you can find that would be more women would attend. And I'm okay. Maybe it's 'cause I had 3 older sisters. I'm okay going there and being the dude and having them be like, oh, he's probably not going to be good at this because he's a guy. And it's like, damn it, you guys are like stereotyping yourselves. Like,
yeah, no,
these are just activities.
I don't accept that. And I don't know why it's such a thing. Like, and I will say, I've said this to my friends. I was like, if you ever posted boys only race or boys only ride, I'd be there in a heartbeat. Like, is
that a thing? Do people say
that?
Well,
no, but like there's women only rides, and I don't know that has to be a thing. So
I think the thing with that could be that I've heard is that it's more than like, sometimes women feel uncomfortable in a group of dudes. They want to get together so that, like you with your veins, sometimes women in a kit, they're like, I don't really feel like I need to be on display in Lycra. And I'm like, okay, I never really considered that. But if you're not comfortable and you'd rather be with women, then like, cool, squat up.
Yeah, but you can wear what you want. Like,
yeah, I mean, if we're going to talk socially about it, it's like I've always said to people, I'm like, why do we have to have a gay bar? Do we all need to only hang out with each other? Like, straight people can come over here too. Like, I like you guys too. And people are like, yeah, but I'm not comfortable, doing this at a regular bar because then everyone's looking at me. I'm like, okay, cool. If it's a comfort thing, do you. Like, so I think I can see similarities in that socially.
But there's the same amount of, like my friend was like, I've always wanted to race. I'm like, go race. Like,
go jump in.
Just go jump in. Like, go. I bought a cyclocross race I bought a cyclocross bike on the way to my first cyclocross race. Like it was in my training Bible that I had to race that day. And then Wheeler Crit had ended and I didn't realize that. And they did this short stint of a cyclocross event for like a month period of time. And I was like, oh, I got to get a cross bike. And like, I don't know. I just go do it.
Go do it.
I did my first Alley Cat race this past year.
Okay.
It was on Thanksgiving, and I had no idea. I was just like, oh, a race! Like I want to go race. Like we've been like starved for racing, right?
Totally.
And I had my shoulder injury. Not necessarily recovered from that. Like it was still super, super weak, but I was like, I'm going. This has got to be fun. And it was like crazy experience. And it was for the stem cap I'm super proud of. Like I wanted, I had always wanted a special stem cap and I could never pull the trigger on getting one, right? So I was just like, I saw them, they were like, yeah, this was like the prize for this Alley Cat race was these stem caps. And I was like, oh, I'm in. I gotta win. I gotta win one of these. It was the craziest race, and I've made such a great bunch of friends from that experience. Like, and I think that's the biggest thing. The community is amazing, and I have people in my life now that I wouldn't know otherwise, and opportunities and friendships and community and just like it's a really, really great experience.
Any parting words for the people?
Oh gosh. Go race.
Go race.
Go race.
I think to what you said though, I think that the biggest thing is I remember being at some races and like looking at Cat ones that seemed like I was like, oh man, like there's so and so. Like I saw that dude at his last race, and had it's like, dude, it's just a Cat one. Like I should have been. I'm like, hey man, what's up? How's your day? Like you just said something. And one of my best friends now, he rode up next to me. He rode up and he's like, hey, are you Brendan Hoosler? And I was like, yeah, Brendan Hauser, how's it going, man? He's like, good. And we still laugh about this. And he's just like, we started talking. He's like, I want to get into training. He went from 5 to 1, became like a amazing regional racer. And we're just laughing. And I was like, dude, you know what? I always remember those, like, you just came and said, what's up? Like sometimes people look at a Cat 1 as like, oh man, it's like, dude, we're not that fast. we're not as fast as you were on skates. Like just go say hi to people. Like, well, sometimes we're just as nervous to talk to the new person as the new person is to talk to us. And that's one thing that I try to remember, like be somebody that's new, like go talk to them. So,
well, yeah, because we're all people. Yeah. Yeah. And we're all there coming together in the community, and why not? Like, yeah, it's like, I always want to meet new people, and I want new guys on bikes as much as I want new girls on bikes. Like I just, the bicycle is such a symbol of freedom, and it has given me so much, and it's a lot easier. Like you had kind of cued in on this earlier. When I get on my bicycle, it's me and my bicycle, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's like all moving forward. When I put my skates on, I'm racing a girl from 20 some years ago, and she was at the top of her game, and that's really hard. Like that's hard to do. So really the bicycle gives me so much more freedom than what I've ever had.
That's awesome. Heather, thank you so much for doing this. This was great. I'm glad you said it was
like, I hope it's received well. I'm super nervous for this.
It totally will be. It's definitely going to inspire some people to go out and go race, as you said, and also just to put their foot, even if they're not racing, like, people will be like, oh man, like, I don't know if you want to help me. I'm trying to go do a Grand Fondo. I'm like, yes, what can I help you with so that you are out there being active? I mean, that was my biggest thing of like, I got to a point in my life where I was like, I'm not even an athlete anymore. This is dumb. I need to find something. And thank God the bike came into my life and just, so.
Well, and if it's not racing, it's keep keep showing up, like keep going out. Do you know how many times I've been dropped? I still get dropped on the group rides. Like
that should be everybody. Everybody should still be saying, "Do you know how many times I still get dropped?" If you're not looking hard enough and trying to find. You should be trying to find people that can drop you. I mean, that's
yeah, and I'm always like super stoked. Like we we had super steady Saturday. I made it to like mile 16 or something the first day I did it, and it's like, you know, they have this is a drop ride, so you get dropped, you're on your own. That's everything's understood, and, you know, there's no hurt feelings. And so, you know, pedaled. I didn't finish the route because I didn't load it. I didn't know what it was, so I just like did the distance, and I got back to the car and went on my way home, and showed up next Saturday, and I was like, gonna make it to mile 17.
Let's go.
I mean, like, I'm learning. No, I definitely wanted to make it further than mile 17, but like, it was so hard that first day that I was like, this is a reasonable goal.
Totally.
So
it's a little bit, and then it's like then sometimes it's like, and that's the incremental thing too, of like, you might go from 16 to 24, you know, it might not be that, and everybody just wants I shouldn't say everybody. There are a lot of like,
I will say that when the community, or when I'm at these, when I'm at a ride, if somebody sees you working that hard, like, they'll help you. Like, they'll be like, all right, you can get it. You can get over this hill. Like, you know, slow your breathing down. Like, and it's all stuff like where I'm like, I should know this. And I'm like, like, I feel like hyperventilating. Oh, breathe. Okay.
Oh,
you know,
my
like,
God.
like I had never heard that before, but like, to have one of my peers beside me be like, no, you can do this. You got it. You got it. You got it. You know, like, up and over, right? Like,
do you do respiratory training?
What's that?
Do you do respiratory training?
Not per se.
You should get into it.
I use a lot of the breathing techniques that I learned from Pilates method. And then I also try to do a lot of visualization and things like that. So
cool.
But if you've got some nuggets, you can share them.
Sitting right here.
Sure.
I use it this morning. AeroFit.
Really?
So supposedly this thing is insane for VO2 max and FTP efforts. So my vital lung capacity has increased. The best way that I can describe it, without just the numbers that it tracks on your app, is that when I'm doing VO2 max, it's obviously still hard. I feel like I have control of my breath. Now it's just the legs, like actually putting out the watts and doing. I don't think I've experienced being like in a panting, out of breath state while doing FTP stuff since I started doing this. I got it October 2019. It was actually when it's a company out of Denmark, and basically I won't get into the history how this guy created it, how he used it, then realized it could be used in athletic performance. And I used it before Tour Southland, and I was like, okay, I just rode extremely well, like some ridiculous watts, and I kept using it and using it and using it. And it's like, it's nuts. And it makes sense. Like, why wouldn't we be training our respiratory system? That's a huge component to endurance sports.
Even on hills, it works. No.
You don't even have to pedal. The thing is, so there was a guy that I was at a race who read my blog I put out about this after I was like, this is why I'm a huge proponent of this thing. And he is big into not tummo breathing, but different types of like breathing holds through, not like Wim Hof, but there's another, I can't remember. It's like, you know how yoga names have like the
Ujjayi breath.
Yeah, it's like Bratislava breathing or something. I can't remember what it was now, but he's like, dude, there's actually ways that you can do the pressure, because this thing has dials that your inhalation and exhale is limited by this. And so it has you practicing not only like inhale strength, there's ones that called depth, where you're practicing holding your breath with no air, which the amazing thing is I tried some of these and I was like, this is not possible. And then 3 months later, it's like, oh my God, I can do intermediate. Now I'm going to try. And then you try expert and you're like, this is not possible. And then you get like halfway through and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe I made it that far. So just the gains of like breath holding and stuff, it's hard to continue. Like just like any training, you have to do it consistently. So I'm really trying to do 20 minutes a day. They recommend 5 to 10 to start and then to build up to 20, but it's just like making the time. And so I'm trying to find it's hard to multitask with it, because if you're doing breath holding stuff and walking around, it makes it way more difficult.
Oh.
So you're just using up any oxygen that's left in there. So anyways, this was awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you for
Oh, how do people follow you? You're big on IG. I don't know your handle right off the top of my head. Is it
Heatherlee.13.
Heatherlee.13, Lucky 13. Awesome. I'll post it here, and hopefully post this in like a week and a half or so. I'll shoot you a note and post it up so your community can see it. And yeah, thank you again. Much appreciated.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Have a great day. Enjoy the Friday. And I look forward to crossing paths on the bike post-COVID one of these days.
Oh, man. Please.
It's going to be good.
Yeah. Thanks, Brandon.
Take care, Heather.
Okay.
Bye.